Hi, I'm Ryan with Best Delegate. I'm here with First Class Cadet and Commander of the West Point Security Conference, George Lemeur. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you, Ryan. Great to have you.
How are you feeling? How's it going?
You know, I could not be happier with how it turned out. We had a fantastic group of people come together to make this thing happen, and the last 2 days, though hectic, though intense, have been absolutely fantastic. We've got a crisis that is rapidly evolving, delegate-driven crisis that is rapidly evolving. And as far as what I've been seeing walking around at the different committees, everyone is thoroughly engaged in
Yes.
they're part of it, and then reaching out to see how they fit in with everyone else. I don't know what you've seen, but I'm very impressed with the interaction between committees, between delegates, and just the general flow of the conference.
That is what I've seen, and I know that you've deliberately designed the conference to be that way, right? That you were explaining to me before how you have the National Security Council at the top, and then issuing directives and getting delegates / people in different committees to interact with one another.
Absolutely.
You wanted it to be fluid.
Right.
And it really seems to be playing out that way.
Absolutely. What we really wanted to do was just tear the walls down to a traditional Model UN mindset, rather than having these different deliberative committees. Though the debate is still substantive, though it is still focused within the committees, in the second, third day of the conference, the focus really should be looking at how we can implement by reaching out and touching the other committee. If I'm the National Security Council, providing direction to PACOM or the Chinese embassy based on the information I get and the refinement of intelligence from the Working Group on Intelligence, the Working Group on Terrorism, or the Working Group on Homeland Security. At this current point that we're having this interview, the Working Group on Intelligence is not met in a single committee. They are dispersed throughout the conference right now, providing intel briefings and coordinating so that they can provide a clear picture to the NSC.
Yes.
Yes,
I was in the crisis room last night, and I know that there was a lot of information given to Intel, and then they were kind of waiting for the other committees to request it. And now it seems like they're actually going after the different committees to deliver that information in person, and you kind of see this information flow, the traffic information. And again, it seems to be deliberately designed this way. And could you describe for us the vision behind the conference? This is West Point's first Model UN conference.
Right.
And for me, it's man, I'm sorry that I graduated and you guys finally do this. What gave you, and I know Andrew Swick, the idea to kind of do a conference and to do it in this manner?
Right. Well, first I got to comment on the fact that my first conference was Sexy XXX. And this was the section of that particular conference. So that's where I'm coming from throughout my Model UN career. So I find it ironic and just frankly delightful that you're here for this. So that being said, 2 years ago, Andrew and I were on the eve of WorldMon. We were getting ready to leave New York City and head off to The Hague. And we had this vision that West Point, we need to do a conference. We need to kind of provide not only the opportunity for delegates on the circuit to come to West Point and to see it, but also to put our mark essentially on the circuit and to put forward a new vision of how we can go about Model UN. The Model UN program is recognized within the West Point community. The officers here that support us, the Social Sciences Department, they recognize how vitally important it is as a training ground, rhetorical, through the knowledge that you gain through studying and preparation, and through the relationships you forge in committees. Some of my best friends have come out of the Model UN circuit, and so we wanted to take that model, but put a national security spin on it. It's the mandate of the United States Military Academy since its creation in 1802 to prepare the next generation of leadership. And for so long, that coordinated training of leaders has solely resided, on, okay, we're in the military, we're going to do this, and you're all going to know each other. Through the 1830s, you're looking at an officer corps that was almost entirely West Point graduates that all knew each other very well, and and so you have that development over these years, and even into the 20th century, with many different commissioning sources, you've got this the military seem to be the most coherently organized, definitely the best organized bureaucracy, but the most interpersonally related and well connected. So what we see is that opportunity and what the good of that, and that being what West Point represents, to be able to put that spin on the kind of whole of government approach. Now, I don't want to get too much into General Ward's remarks. I know a lot of people are recording those, and those are certainly available. But the gist of the opening ceremonies was to set the tone that we can all get on the same page. Mm-hmm. We're all looking for the same thing: the betterment of our country, the prevention of crises, the protection of the American way of life. But the way to do this is not necessarily so black and white as to have a large military and to know how to use it. It's also to look at our economic development, our cultural understanding of different areas. Certainly in the intelligence component, but not just the count of the enemy troop movements or the understanding of where enemy units are. The fundamental understanding of cultures and the history of the region that you're going into. And that we're trying to bring all these things into WPSC. So we have a great group of delegates here that are bringing in an immense body of knowledge. And what WPSC does is it provides this structure, as it exists now, of the National Security Council, NSC at the top, working groups specifically designated to attack particular parts of the problem, to refine that for the NSC. 2 combatant commands, AFRICOM and PACOM, and then the U.S. Embassy to China, because that is the defining strategic relationship of this century.
Yes.
So you've got this kind of top-down structure, but at the same time we're working not only within that structure, but to fundamentally re-engineer what we have there. How the United States approaches these problems, using the full spectrum of American capabilities of power. And in addition to that, looking at how maybe it's not so rigid as we'll have the military do this part, we'll have the State Department do this part, because we know Modern Combatant Command's AFRICOM was created with all these parties around the same table to achieve the same goal and to leverage all aspects of power. And so what WPSC allows the delegates to do is to make the conscious choice. We're going to do this. We're going to change how we look at national security. And exactly external to that, I would say, is the fact that you've got all these people so focused on this for the next 3 days. What's going to come out of this at the end? It's a policy review, which is the final committee session, reviewing everything that they've done, and then these deeply seated lessons that are kind of connected with the relationships that they've made. So as delegates walk away from WPSC, I know that we've got a lot of seniors here. When they walk away, they're not only going to have the packet of relationships that they now have within the military, much greater and deeper exposure to military personnel than traditionally you would, especially for the intelligence-minded and the diplomats in the group. That's great. And for the West Point cadets, it's this whole new group of individuals and new perspectives that we wouldn't traditionally get in our day-to-day interaction with one another.
That's something really cool. It's definitely what I've been seeing. And from hearing you, I don't know, I see it in there's a lot packed into this. And so I was really excited to at least visit here for the first couple of days.
Right.
And I know that, on a substance level, from what you were describing, that there seems to be more of an appreciation in terms of soft power. I guess we would call it an IR.
Absolutely.
In terms of understanding perspectives. Right? And then on another level, it's this is the United States Military Academy teaching college students and civilians about national security and about how the military works.
But I got to correct you there, because it's not necessarily that we're teaching. We're just simply facilitating the structure of it as it exists. And honestly, I would say that the chairs, of which not all are United States Military Academy cadets. One is, of course, Drew Peterson.
Yes,
currently,
Mr. President.
Currently, the president is currently a Harvard student, former Georgetown graduate.
Yes.
But we're not necessarily teaching anything. We're facilitating these ideas to be put forward, and we're in the combatant commands. There is a slight education curve as far as technical details go.
Okay. No,
but as far as everything else, it's a conversation.
No, that's fair. I mean, I know just being in the presence, I feel like myself and I feel the delegates are absorbing a lot of the knowledge and at least some of the experience that you guys have brought to the table, and it's just apparent, I think, that for us who study like IR, it's we had to read text and go to class, but speaking with your advisor and speaking with the West Point cadets, it's part of your training. that you guys live and breathe this stuff, which to me is like really impressive. I don't know, just again being here, just trying to absorb as much as I can. And I would even say like at the highest level, like what I've seen is, I mean, you guys are going into, you guys are in the armed services, and you are, you know, putting your lives on the line to like defend this country, and you're taking time out of your training, out of your day, to again, I mean, to facilitate this conference, to help again college students and civilians just learn about, I think, a little bit more about what you guys go through, and again what it takes to really like keep this country running. And for me, like that's amazing. Like that's a really cool part that I feel like I'm taking away just from being here, and I'm sure your delegates are too.
Well, I mean, I certainly appreciate.
It's my way of saying thank you to the armed services.
I appreciate that, and I mean, certainly overly gracious. I would consider this not necessarily taking away from our training. This in the current conflicts and the current international system that we have, I could think of no better training than for future lieutenants, which will have certainly a tactical perspective to understand at the strategic level and at the international system level the repercussions of their decisions and the origin of their orders. So I would thank the delegates that came to WPSC more than anyone for the opportunity that they gave everyone in the room. Certainly some of the younger guys that are working the crisis staff and even the orderlies that are going around are just absorbing the knowledge that's being provided by the delegates here. And just the quality that I've seen thus far is just the ability of the group that we've got to conceptualize the problem and to come up with solutions for it. So I think that's fantastic. And then as to your kind words, it's embarrassing because none of us have deployed, with the exception of Ross Boston, who did serve in Iraq with distinction. But we certainly thank you, and I hope that this experience will help us serve better in a better capacity.
I mean, again, that's been I think the beauty of this conference, especially as it unfolds, that you're connecting like military, civilian perspectives. And again, speaking with your advisor, like when West Point goes to a conference, like you guys certainly have a commanding presence, quite literally. And that, I don't know, at least when I was a delegate, like walking away from the conferences, like a lot of respect for the West Point delegation, just the way that they can command the room. And thankful that it's you guys like leading our country when we our security and our military. And so speaking to your advisor, like it's been in terms of public affairs, it seemed to be a good face for the military academy. And the fact that you're holding a conference here and bringing students here has been I think a great experience. But what has been the challenge and also like the best part of like being commander and like starting West Point's like first conference? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I guess my opening remarks, the whole thing was about kind of challenging bureaucracy and not just being satisfied to operating within the corridors of that. An interesting note, what was it, Wednesday morning, I got a message from a civilian intelligence analyst at Fort Leavenworth that was basically a reply immediately. And with his phone number. So we got in contact with him, and it turns out that the background guide was labeled top secret security clearance only as part of the simulation. But traditionally when you release these in the Department of Defense, it says exercise, exercise, exercise on it. So what basically was happening was there was a WikiLeaks-esque investigation pending if we couldn't provide an explanation for this. So feverishly before the first committee session, we had the entire crisis staff writing exercise, exercise, exercise on all of the, quote, classified documents. So that's just kind of a small example of how operating, trying to innovate within a bureaucracy like the Department of Defense is. Going from an idea had by sophomores in college to the execution of WPSC it's a tale of just great generosity on the part of certain officers that were truly willing to challenge, to stake their name to us, and then to go with us in our challenge of the rigidity of the system and pushing this thing through and trying to prove how important it would be for all the points that you addressed earlier to bring people to West Point, to hold this conference here. and not only to give the academy the opportunity to engage these college students, but also for the students to engage and question the academy, to clear up their preconceptions and to get to know cadets and officers. So communicating that message was, I guess, the most fun part, maybe one of the more challenging parts of the conference. But I have to say, nothing in my mind sticks out as just being absolute drudgery, or because I was surrounded by a great staff. Andrew, right there from the beginning, Trip Calloway, as the intellectual developer of the crisis, and his fantastic group of people. Michael Kerper, who was a freshman when we came up with this, and basically the first conversation that Mike and I had was in economics class about how we were going to pay for WPSC. And he, by God, he did it. He figured out how that was going to happen. And so it's just all these things coming together. So as far as challenges go, yes, we had to fight the dragon of a bureaucracy.
Sure.
But I think more the lessons that I learned and the friendships that I made and I solidified through the course of the last 2 years have made this one of the best experiences I've had at the academy.
Wow. And that's another thing. Can you because it seems that Model UN has been a big part of your experience here, and it seems that you have a unique experience compared to other students that I speak with. Given that you are at a military academy, could you? This is a question that I asked all the secretaries general and now my first commander.
Okay.
What does Model UN mean to you?
Okay. So Model UN, and I briefly touched on this before when I talked about our vision for WPSC. But for me, Model UN is nearly 100% about the people you meet. When I was in certain crisis situations, just the amount of knowledge that's required to understand it is valuable. You learn a lot. I would joke that when teachers would get mad at me for missing class, that I learned more in 3 days at PICSIM or 3 days at HNMUN refining, in a GA. Than I did in their entire class, so I couldn't, not
I don't know if you would say that.
Not stated directly, but kind of most of this is actually a pretty good educational experience. That being said, I would say 98% of Model UN for me is the people that you meet, and I've had over this last year particularly the opportunity to meet some absolutely fantastic people that have really improved my quality of life. And improved my concept of the welfare of this country. I remember thinking, along with Wudo, I had the opportunity to be delegates in the Security Council at Worldwide. I was chaired by Ricky Hanzik, the HNMUN Secretary General, with some fantastic delegates in there, and just the other Americans in the room, some great guys from Yale and Columbia, that just their knowledge, their ability to understand the problem, and then furthermore the way we kind of all work together. I was just blown away and extremely elated. I remember mentioning to Wu that I'm very happy for the course of our country in the future, and coming together with some great delegates from Católica or Universidad Andrés Bello, from the Lahore University of Management Sciences. From United Belgium, that fantastic organization, meeting with all of them, as well as students from Taiwan, China, and across the Asian continent, which is, as you're helping, rapidly becoming part of this Model UN conversation. Yeah. All of these different groups, I have forged some fantastic friendships, and I really think that is the most important thing that's come out of Model UN. And I would say that for any undergrad, you at least have to go to one conference and just have the opportunity to reach this group of people, and let them put their impression on you, because there's some fantastic people out there on the circuit, and I think that the opportunity to have that for the last 4 years has been definitive in my development, and certainly much appreciated.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me visit.
Absolutely.
For putting on this conference. And good luck through the rest of the weekend.
Thank you, Ryan.